All right, Mitch. Really appreciate you coming on, man. I appreciate you as a friend, and we were talking just before the podcast on a lot of different things, and I just am always entertained by you, man. But appreciate you coming on the podcast.
You got it. It's a good thing we weren't recording earlier. Otherwise, that would have created some interesting content. We'll try to continue the trend of keeping it natural.
Yeah. There would have been some serious editing that my editor would have to do on that. But no, it's good to have you on, buddy. I appreciate you so much, and we've had some really awesome conversations over the years. But I'm excited to talk about leadership. You would never say this about yourself, but I think you're one of the best leaders that I talk with. I think that you're one of the best leaders in the country. As a college coach, I think you're extremely unique in so many ways, and we can, we'll hit on some of the things that you believe and all that. But I just think your true authenticity is real, and I just think that's a major draw, man. I know that we've become good friends and all that, but I just appreciate you so much, and I just think that who you are is a very unique individual, and I think it makes you an incredible leader. And so you're the perfect guy to have on this and try to help some kids and honestly anyone listening, other coaches, whatever, on how to become a great leader. And I think that there's effort and work that goes into that, and there's intention. Some is natural, but I think you can really develop that. So we're going to touch on that. But before we do, I promised you that we'd get to talk some fishing. That was a big thing for you. So let's talk fishing, man. Have you been out? Have you been out lately?
You
I know you've
know,
been
I
busy.
haven't. I wish we had a chance to make it happen. We were on the road nonstop. Really, once the season ends, coming home here and there for maybe a couple visits, or when I usually put to work around the house, making sure we're getting some of the projects done.
There
Uh,
you go.
yes, ma'am. I
You
will
need a
get on
good
the roof.
handyman, Mitch. You need a good handyman. That's what I've learned, dude.
Well, I need more than a handyman, because after I get out there and I try to fix the lights or the gutters or you name it, we have to have someone else come out and repair that and then some. Uh, but honestly, we're fortunate here. We have three main rivers right around Corvallis: the Willamette, the Alsea, and the Siletz, and then also right up north, I don't know, just a couple minutes outside of Corvallis. A friend of ours has been letting us go out there and go fishing ever since I was in school.
Nice. Okay.
And there's tons of bass out there at the ponds, or you can just go out there and float and relax. But it's been a tradition here. All of our guys go out there and catch bass. So it's always been something that us former guys, even when our alumni come back into town, we run out to the ponds.
No
And
way, man. That's
yeah,
awesome.
Billy Rao, my old roommate, when he comes up, you want to go hit the ponds up? I was like, dude, would love to if we find time. So,
That's great, man. That's great. But you obviously it's a busy time, and my schedule and how I operate too, man. It's fishing is not something I get to do as much as I would like to. I don't pretend like I am doing extensive research on where they're biting in my area, what to fish with. I just love to go and try to figure it out. That's what I try to do. But I did send you that text. You never I would like you to kind of, share a little bit about that bass in the text that I sent you, because I mean, you don't catch them like that all the time, Mitch.
I did. No, you're right. That definitely, based on how your arm's fully extended, showing me, it's definitely really close to the camera. So it looks like a whale, which is great.
That's
Fortunately,
good.
it's bigger than you are. That's a high quality bass right there. You never know. I
Yeah.
always gauge the size of the bass by how far the arm is extended.
Yeah,
If they're getting all the way out there, or if it's like close to the face, then you
that's
get an
great.
idea. But it's great. That's I'd have
It's
to
not.
really dig in my archives to give you what I got. But the thing is, a lot of times when I go fishing, I like fishing in January. Like it, I
Okay.
mean,
All right.
it's chilly, but that's when the runs really happen. And Coach Dorman and I went out, uh, what before the season, and January 2nd, and it's like opening day right there past the hatchery, and you're almost shoulder to shoulder. You're out there before the sun's even coming up, and it's cold. And so the last thing that I'm going to do is try to reach into my pocket and pull out my phone to take a picture of us. when
Agreed.
it's already like plenty cold. And when you get out on the river, it's so. How about this? Last time I went out, I talked to my missus and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go. I'll probably be back around 10 o'clock." And I got out there, and there was really nobody else on the river, which was great. That I was going at an odd time of the year and odd hours, but I get out there, got my waders on, move out into the stream, and then as I'm doing a roll cast, I'm like, man, this is beautiful. 2 seconds later, I rip my line, and so I just put my pole down and I sit on a stump, and I enjoy 2 hours of just tranquility.
Oh,
Hanging
no way, man. That's
Yeah, and I
great.
thought about like, was I going out to go fishing that day, or
Yeah.
was I going out to just relax? And ended up just sitting there relaxing and going on a hike, doing some deep thinking. But I went home and I felt so refreshed. So it's never been for me necessarily about catching the fish, and I can say that because, and I should say that because I'm terrible at catching the fish, great at casting, great at getting outdoors, but like bringing home dinner, I'm better off at Safeway.
Yeah, man. I'm with you. I care more about the serenity of it and the tranquility, the nature. It's just, especially you and I think a lot of people, but we don't get a lot of space, right? And so it gives some space. And I have to confess, so that bass picture that I sent you, the only reason I took that picture, that's not that great of a bass. I'll be honest. My kids, though, I have two daughters. They're 7 and 4, and they think that every bass I catch is just a monster, right? So I really tried to exaggerate the extension on it so that when I got home, they were like, "Wow, congratulations, Dad!" So I don't want to pretend that that was that great of a bass. It really wasn't. So you caught on the extension there, and the I think you can always manipulate the picture however you want, right? So I did a good job of that, and that's really it. But
Hey, in pitching, extension is highly thought of. So getting that kind of extension, I bet you got some good spin on that. That's good.
that's right, man. That's right. Well, I mean, I guess fishing. We talked fishing. We talk a lot of different other things. I want to get into the podcast a little bit. I know that the topic is very general. I just think it's such a unique topic. But before we get into it, man, you and I have had some really, really good conversations over the years as friends. And you have such a unique background, and you have faced challenges that I think many people have not. And I would love you to dive into that, man, because that is something that is so unique and inspiring. And I would just want you to share with the listener and the people watching. Like, I want them to understand your background and the challenges that you face, because it hasn't been easy.
Yeah, and that's something that we had talked about. There was a period of time where it was really hard to share. I was younger at the time, and when I got to Oregon State, Jess Lewis, he was took care of all the fields here. He was a former. Actually, I got a cardboard cutout of him here in my office,
Oh, no way.
but he's one of my heroes, man. That guy's special. He was a football player, a wrestler here. Guy played in the NFL, and he went through some hardship. Got caught up in drug abuse. And in his class that he taught here at Oregon State, this is right after I lost my mom to a drug overdose. This class, he like shared his story and how much power for him to share it and for all of us to hear it. Because I just looked at him like, man, this guy is untouchable. He was a legend when he was playing as an athlete, as a wrestler and as a football player. And I worked for him on the grounds crew when I first got here. And so him to share that story, I had no idea. And then he encouraged us to go out and share some kind of experience story with the elementary school here in town, or middle school, Linus Pauling. And so I went over there and I decided I was going to open up about the loss of my mother and what that meant and some of the other things that happened throughout my childhood. And I walked out of there bawling. Like, it was the first time I'd ever really opened up, and I did it to a group of strangers, a group of kids,
Yeah.
But I felt like I was standing a foot taller. I knew myself even better. It was good to get it out. And I started doing that through music as well. My best friend since fifth grade gave me the idea of, I know you don't like journaling, but let's write music. And you can write down, your thoughts and feelings, and I guess your vision through music. So he started sending me, instrumentals, and I'd write songs with them, and it led to, O State Ballers and us singing about winning a national championship and then fulfilling that, which was fun. But that transition of finding ways to let it out and share with others, that's why I think of it. It's every time there has been hardship, you get to choose how you want to handle it. And I think of all those things, like loss of my mother to drug abuse, loss of my brother in the military through some very wild circumstances there. We moved 13 times. My little brother and I were in 13 different houses before sixth grade. So we're constantly house hopping, couch hopping, you name it. And my older brother lived with my grandparents. I was my mom's son, my dad's half son. And now, so it's just hard being away from one brother, hopping around houses. And there's a lot of other little things that we could, really marinate on. But just this could be a 5-hour podcast if we dove into all of it. But
Yeah.
The real thing is through hardship, like I enjoy sharing those things with others, and because of the people that helped me through it, right? Being here at Oregon State, Dan Spencer, Pat Casey, you name it, everyone who was involved in this place wrapped their arm around me, didn't coddle me, but encouraged me to get back up off the ground, and prevented me from going down a really rough road. My freshman year, I had 2 surgeries right as the season started. And, when you're a freshman and you're paying a lot of money to go to school and you got nobody, I knew the one guy I was living with, Shay McFeely, was from Federal Way, which is a long ways away from Lake Stevens. And so I didn't really know him, and he was a year older. And I just remember just being so out of place because I couldn't produce anything on the field, at least is what I thought, with the surgeries, and just sitting around like, what do I do? But now hindsight, all these things, right? Loss of a loved one. I learned so much after losing my mom about how I can use that now to go help other kids that are going through those similar struggles. Losing my brother in the military, that was my first full season of pro ball in 2008. After Dustin passed, I did so much reflecting on who I was as a person, and I should be so much more like him. What a gifted person. And I know he would have still joined the military, even knowing, he knew what the consequences could potentially be in there. Maybe not the way that it went down. But, the house hopping and knowing how to make friends and being social and let your guard down, and, handling bits of racism and seeing how that unfolded, and treating other people the right way. So each hardship that has come my way, as it says in the Bible, consider an opportunity of great joy, because now you're able to build endurance. And I don't know, I always wanted to be in this position as the head coach here at Oregon State, but I've also prayed on, like, if I'm going to do that, I need to be ready for it. And so I need to experience all these things and then some, so that when we are on the battlefield out there, or something really devastating happens, that we're able to stay calm and react to it. Your line snaps in the water. What are you going to do? Freak
Right.
out? You can't feel your fingers. It's January. What are you going to do? Yeah. You're gonna complain and go home, or you're gonna sit there and make the most of it and turn it into something beautiful. And so, I have so many fond memories of each of the people that have come and gone in my life and have influenced me. But it's almost like I look at each of those things as a gift, not a gift that's always easy to accept, and still a lot of sadness. If I see if I see a little guy with glasses on, like it always reminds me of my brother. He's the smaller one in the family, but how fearless he was to his beliefs. It's how I model a lot of what I do because of my younger brother and my mom, and the stuff that my dad has taught me about giving to others and shooting. But now look, I didn't spend the first 36 years with my older brother around him because he lived in Eastern Washington. We lived in Northwest Washington, and now him and his wife have moved down here.
Oh, that's great, man. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
they work at the bookstore, like 100 yards away from me right now.
That
He
is
get
awesome.
he gets off work at 3, comes by the baseball field every day, watches practice, hangs out in the office. I got to get him a desk or something. He's over there every day. But
Do something. No,
it's awesome, dude. He's my big brother, and we may not have got the first part of our lives together, but I'll be dang, we're going to spend the rest of our lives together. And he's a great uncle to his niece and nephew, and shoot, he's still trying to move even closer so that we get to spend even more time together. But my dad's down here too. My aunt and uncle moved up from the Bay. It's such a wonderful place here to raise a family. And it kind of, after losing my brother, I realized really quick, you got to keep the main thing the main thing. What are you really chasing in it? Is it, fame and fortune? Something Andy McKay introduced to me was, and he got it from, I believe, Doc Rivers, society scoreboard versus the personal scoreboard, and been reflecting a lot on that over the years. Am I really chasing money and status and power and rankings, or am I more so going after values, relationships, principles, mastery of it, and authenticity, things of that nature? And that's the exciting part about what we do now. Every one of our kids, next year you got, let's just stick with 34. You got 34 student athletes coming in. And then you got other ones you're recruiting, sure, and other guys that have moved on. But you have that group of 34 that you have got to build a relationship with, and they all speak different languages. They all have different experiences. One kid came up to me after I gave my talk in Riverton, Wyoming, and I was sharing my story with them all. And the kid comes up and goes, "My mom and dad smoke cigarettes. What do I do?" It's just like, and you could tell it was breaking her down.
Okay.
And I was like, cigarettes? I was talking about some crazier stuff than that. Like, you should never go down.
Yeah.
But to this little girl, it meant like that was serious to her. She cared about mom and dad, and it felt like they were hurting themselves, and it was devastating her. And so we were able to connect and talk through a lot of those things about how do we communicate to our parents, to these people who are superheroes, right?
Yep.
Larger than life. And so I'm very grateful for all the different bumps in the road, because it has allowed me to connect with so many more people.
Yep.
And, like, what kind of music do you listen to? All of it, man. Like, who are we hanging out with? I enjoy a little bit of everything.
Yep.
What kind of hobbies do you have? I enjoy being around people. One of my favorite things to do is share a meal, is eat breakfast with somebody and connect.
Yeah, that's so good.
I need to eat more. I'm getting skinny.
I was gonna say,
obviously I talk too much, so I don't eat as much as I should. I keep blabbing.
I love it, man. I think your story is so cool. I mean, I think the other thing is like you kind of, obviously this is a conversation and different conversations we've had over the years, right? This is a really, really in-depth thing, and it ties into, well, becoming a great leader, and how that you can use that, right? And how it can change you, and how it can give you empathy and compassion for people. And I just think, I mean, this is you didn't touch on this specifically, but I mean, you were sleeping in a car in high school.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important for people to understand, though, Mitch, like, and I think that this can happen a lot, is just tough times, man, happen. And that can be a divorce. It can be substance abuse issue that a kid might have in high school. peer pressure, societal pressure. I mean, there's all these things coming at kids now, right? And it's really difficult. But what I'm trying to drive home is like we're talking about a situation where you had nothing, you were living out of a car and trying to chase your dream. I mean, and the reason I'm saying that is because it, if you want it, you have to continue to fight for it. Whatever those circumstances are, and you've had some really incredible challenges, but I think if and obviously with your brother and your mom, two really devastating losses, but in the end, it is part of who you are now, right? There's purpose in that pain. And and I think you can really impact people when they know what the story is, because if they know the story, this, Mitch, you've heard people talk, you've heard people share their stories, and we attach to whatever that pain is for us, whatever that challenge is for us. And I've had my own, obviously, I don't know if I've shared this with you a lot, but I dealt with a really serious cancer at 20 years old. you know I mean, when you lay in bed at night and you close your eyes and you don't know if you're going to wake up, and you do that for a year, going through the hardest chemotherapy and radiation treatments on the planet, it does change you, and like, was that enjoyable? Absolutely not. But like you, and on the other side of it, to be able to give back a little bit and talk with people that are going through that. When we all know people dealing with cancer, right? And so it's been an incredibly rewarding experience post cancer, because I've been able to share a lot of that, a lot of the pain. What is it going to be like?
Yeah.
How do I overcome this? Right. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to attach, and as we kind of flow into the other part of this conversation, how has this changed you as a leader, though? Everything that you've been through, how does it make you a better leader?
Well, yeah, growing up broke, and there were times like, my dad had a good job, but he was so giving with other people. He took care of a lot of people, so it wasn't like we always had a ton of money. And my mom definitely did not have a ton of money, and so being able to relate to the wide spectrum. We have some kids that are here that don't have to worry about finances ever, and others that are like constantly like struggling and trying to find a way to take out loans, and are gonna. I mean, they eat everything on their plate. I mean, you get a little bit of everything, but to those, and I probably spend most of my time, I'd say, with the guys, like really thinking and spending time with guys that are not playing or are hurt. I've had 17 surgeries now, some minor, some big. Left shoulder twice, right shoulder once, left knee a couple times, little hernia, little this, little that. But
Right.
I know what it is like to feel the hard times, but I also know what it takes to get through those. We focus on what you can do.
Mhm.
When I first started my first business, I was looking for someone to invest in it, and he goes, "How many hours are you going to work in a day? How many days a week?" And I was like, I don't know, 6 days a week, 12-hour days sounds pretty amazing to me. And he goes, "I can't invest. That's not enough to start a business and be successful." And he was a mentor of mine, and I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Now, when you start talking about 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for the first 3 years, now you got a chance of making it something special." I was like, "Dang."
There we go.
But you start making the choice,
Mm.
right, to lay victim to it or just overcome. Brent Barnes, my wrestling coach in high school, 30 years, 12 state titles. That guy is, brilliant. He Everything was winning it all and going all out. He taught us about the wall. This wall that existed in front of all of our faces that we believe existed, and how to break it down. Brent pushed us every single day, especially in the wrestling room, to break that thing down, to go harder than you've ever thought possible, and then realize you had more. And then that wall beyond that wall wasn't even an issue anymore either, because we put these limitations on ourselves, through our thoughts, and we're starting to visualize what it all is that is too far for us to go. It's crazy having 17 surgeries, and every time you go under, you're in an operating room and they're going to put you to sleep. Are you waking back up? And what's it going to be like for, if you do wake up, and how long is it going to be? And what kind of setbacks are you going to have? I mean, this thing still pops all the time. This one pops all the time. The mobility is not there what it once was, but yeah, going on a roller coaster, is still whatever kind of bothers me. Well, I get dizzy as heck, but how can you go through the same stuff when you go through something really difficult can help you on the day to day about, hey, I mean, really a just constant reminder to me is believe in him. If I have faith in Jesus, then what am I scared of anything for? What do I have a need for? Being broke, and then, having financial wealth. It's taught me so much about why I don't need that and how you can help other people. My brother was a very giving person. Again, what all the hardships do is it allows you to connect to so many different people if you learn from it. It allows you to inspire and know that just because you're willing to teach other people doesn't mean they're willing to listen. They have to be ready for that moment. They might be 65 years old and then find a relationship with Christ. They might be, 18 and going through the hardest thing in the world and be ready then, or they haven't even hit rock bottom yet. It took, my older brother till, he was in his 30s to finally make a big change. I'm still trying to make big change. I always thought, and I was told this a while back, your 20s, that's for exploration, development, research, trying to find out a little bit of who you are. And then your 30s become the editing phase, narrowing it down. I have a lot less people in my circle than I did in my early 20s when, everybody come on in. You had an apartment and you're throwing a house party every night. It felt like that socially. Just I'm calling everybody. If it's 6 a.m, I'm calling somebody on the East Coast because it's 9 o'clock their time and I know they're up. And if it's, I'm calling a friend from Hawaii if it's midnight because it's 9 there and I know they're up. Just being overly social. And now you start to, really pay attention to the people you're surrounding yourself with. Are they lifting you up? Are you lifting them up? In each of these realms, it's like our baseball staff here, we are very close. But, and I consider us all brothers, but we're all very different, and we feed off each other. The way we interact with players is all very different. But the one thing that's constant, our care level for each of these kids is through the roof. We all parent just a little bit differently. Before we got on the phone, I was talking to Coach Dorman about parenting, and just we're talking about our sons, right? Hey, does he go through this too? And they're roughly the same age. All right, what did you do in that situation? How did it work out? Because here's what I'm doing. And the reality is, I have, I just say, I don't know what I'm doing. I remember first year coaching in pro ball, they get to the clubhouse. It was Dorman and Caesar Nicholas and I. And then we got in there and I was like, man, I have no idea I've never coached before. This is the first gig as managing. I like that. Okay, let's roll with it. And then Dor took off to Grand Canyon. Pete Woodworth, who's now the pitching coach for the Mariners in the big leagues. Us three were sitting there in the office and go, all right, Dor's gone. That was the guy who's done this for 10 years. Let's do it. We don't know what we're doing. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
But we learned a ton, and we failed a lot. We continue to fail a lot, but those are instead of failing and getting upset, learning how to take failure as encouragement. That's life's way of saying, get up, go again. You're going to enjoy this. Trust me, keep getting up and going again. That was one of the coolest moments I've ever seen was, my kids handling failure, my daughter working on doing like a back handspring and then getting nervous and then just working into it. And we're out there doing the little flips together. The fact that she trusts me to help her do a backflip blows my mind. And then watching her continue to do it over and over and then succeed, and the smile on her face was so awesome. She didn't quit. And my son, he was wrestling one time. He got taken down. I love wrestling for this fact. You have to respond
Yep.
to adversity really
Yep.
quick. You don't have time to mope.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're on your back. I watched my son get taken down. My wife was at his wrestling practice with me. This was, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And he kept getting taken down. This guy was bigger than him, faster than him, knows what he's doing. My son's first year wrestling. This guy kept throwing him to the mat. Matt gets back up. Throwing him to the mat, gets back up. I kid you not, I was like starting to like tear up a little bit. I was just so fired up. Every time I talk about it, I feel like this warmth in the back of my eyes, just so happy. Like that's what I want for him, is to get beat up, because if he's going to be a good husband and a good man and a good member of his community and achieve his dreams that he wants, like he's going to have to handle the no.
Yeah.
You want to do something cool. Every time someone wants something from you, like tell them no and see what they do. Just like I like it being like a yes idea, but I want to see how passionate they are about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know exactly what you mean, man. And I love those examples, because I think really it's like leadership and becoming a great leader. It really becomes, a big piece of it for me is one of the words I use all the time, is how resilient you are. And if you're not resilient and others are watching you, they will not follow you. Like if you're not a resilient person, if that's failure in game, as we're talking about baseball, getting taken down a ton on a wrestling mat, like others watch that. And if you just continue to battle and battle and battle, like that person then becomes, someone that they look to and say, man, just doesn't give up. Like there's some resilience there, and I think that's one of the words that I typically use to describe like a great leader is resilience. But there's so many other pieces to this. And I think as we kind of morph this conversation from like challenges and trials, and like there's a lot of kids also that haven't been through a lot of that. Like I will raise my hand and say, like, I had an amazing childhood. Okay. And when I got hit in the mouth with some extremely difficult challenges, I was ready in a different way. I was brought up really well to hold myself a certain way, and to I heard no a lot. I was taught to work for the things that I got. I was taught to work if I wanted to be good at something. I was taught. So I'm trying to like morph this, because I think that there are a lot of kids, Mitch, that have faced a lot of challenges and are facing different challenges, whatever those are, different levels of challenges.
Yeah.
But I also think that there are players that are in the process, the recruiting process, they're in high school, and they've really had a pretty good life. They really, some kids have never even lost anybody. They have their grandparents still alive. They really have had, just some really amazing experiences through life, and challenges. Everybody has some challenges, but in general. But I still think as a player, as a kid, I still think you can do things to develop without the challenges. And I think challenges have to be viewed as like there's purpose in the pain, right? I always say that, purpose in the pain. And like, but if you don't have that, have those challenges, I still think that there's a lot of things that you can do as a person to grab hold of your teammates and have them follow you, and and have them watch what you're doing and listen, have a strong voice, in the clubhouse or locker room. I want you to talk about this. So like trust is a huge piece of leadership. And so I want to hear what you have to say on how you build that trust with your players. That's the first question. And then the great leaders that you've been around and you have in your program, how do they build the trust of their teammates?
I mean, you hit a big nugget there, resilience. Travis Wazana you knew how much he cared every
Oh yeah,
day,
good.
all day.
Yes. Yep.
Wade Meckler, not the biggest stature of guy, as we all know. Neither was Nick Madrigal, but those guys were obsessed, and
Yep.
they worked,
Yep.
and they cared about every little thing. And at first, you're like, "Oh, dude, this guy's he's wild. Like, he must really care. Like, his plan never changed direction outside of becoming the best of the best." And at some point, there are those that look at it and think that the guy's out of his mind. But if you keep thinking that after watching him go through what he went through, then maybe it's you who's out of your mind. And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't have to go through. I don't know. Maybe you don't have to go through all the hardship, but okay, all fall, right? Never, you haven't played a college game yet. You're coming in as a freshman. You haven't played a college game. You don't know what to expect. So do you just practice and act like everything's hunky dory and then you deal with it when it gets there? Or do you set your practice accordingly so that it is challenging enough so that the game doesn't freak you out?
Yep.
Same thing in life. You may not have played in that game, but everything that you do, you should start to recognize and see those around you and say, you know what? I do need to be ready if that game, if that opponent comes in my life.
Mhm.
If, loss and hardship or financial issues or, health issues, some of that stuff can and will come. Why do we try to eat right and sleep well and, take care of your body? It's not all in your control. I mean, my wife has had a lot of interesting health things go on, and we don't really talk a ton to others about these things with her, but it's been she does no wrong to her body. She exercises every day. This morning I got up, she's doing the same thing she does every day. She's got her Bible out, she's doing her devotions. She drinks tea in the evenings to calm down.
There we go. My wife.
Instead of grabbing a soda or something else.
Yep. Yep.
She lives a very clean life. She gets the right amount of sleep. She's a wonderful mother and caring and considerate. I mean, our garden is immaculate, and so that doesn't calm you down and make you feel good about life, sitting there in the backyard staring at all the flowers. But she's also you can do all the right things and still have these hardships.
Yep.
And so I just think you got to know what potentially can be out there and not let and still prepare for it and still build your tool chest to have all those things to go through tough times. But sometimes we just, I've never done it. So our self-awareness is very poor.
Yep.
The evaluation skills of some, it's you can never, I guess, two rules, never make assumptions. That would be a big one, and never take things personal. When a kid tells me I'm this good, this is real, I'm right here. I'm like, I have a different opinion on that, but I can't assume he really knows.
Right.
I'm not going to take it personally. He thinks I'm doing it wrong. Like, everyone has an opinion on things. I want to do the right thing constantly.
Yep.
But I do think that that's one thing, you hit it on the head, resilience, being able to continue to chip away. And when hard things happen, do they continue on the path?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dallas Macias right now, you should see this kid. He came in as a freshman a couple of years ago. We're playing 27 outs, and it was one of the coolest moments of the year. Playing 27 outs, he's playing second base. He's just purely an outfielder now. And if you bobble a ball or don't throw it clean or what have you, back to zero, and we're two teams going at it. So if you mess up, you got to get off the field. The other team comes out, and we're probably an hour into it at this point. The grind of the fall, trying to play clean baseball, and ball gets hit to center field. Our outfielder, an upperclassman, Ruben Cedillo, who had just come in at a junior college, he bobbled it on out number 27.
Oh, no way.
And he brings it in, and I'm like, get off the field. And they all start going. You can just tell, instant, no. And Dallas turns around, runs out there right away, like, hey, we're all right. Come on. We'll get it on the next one. There's no way those guys get it done. It's okay, blah, blah. But a freshman going out to a junior
Yeah.
giving him love right away, like no hesitation.
It's an awesome.
Everybody else is running off the field, but your guy's down in the dumps, like, and Dallas chose to take the other path. And Dallas also, like, he's a tough cookie, but he was not, the throw was difficult for him in the infield. I've seen that guy tackle baseballs. He's like a blue heeler, by the way, man. This guy will go get anything. He will play fetch out in the outfield until he can't move anymore. It's great. But the resilience piece is huge. We talk a lot about lonely work here. We have practice 3 hours, 5 days a week or what have you. We get our 20-hour segment. And then that other 21 hours in the day, like proving to yourself that you are a champion with those other 21 hours. Everyone can show up to practice. Guys who show up here just to practice and stretch and do the thing and work hard during practice, but outside of that, they don't handle it. It ain't going to work. Our champions are made from lonely work. Those guys getting together in after hours and doing mobility and hitting in the cage and sleeping the right way. Like, again, everything that you do it like a champion. Mm-hmm. You're going to sleep like a champion. You're going to eat like a champion would. You're going to sprint. Well, you better sprint like a champion. It doesn't matter. Like,
right.
Those things don't change. And when guys see others omitting themselves from that late night out downtown or, turning down like all the noise right now with NIL and transfer portal, the amount of money our guys turned down and they were getting, poked at by other schools. Hey, you go this way and we got some real coin for you to come out here. Our guys value the relationships. They know, like, they're like, why would I leave for, a couple bucks when if I stay and train here, I'm going to turn that into so much money that it's not that other figure doesn't even exist.
Yep. And so it's shortchanging too, right? I mean, if you're making decisions based on money, like it'll just leave you empty forever, right? I mean, and that's really the thing too, is like the NIL stuff has changed a lot. I don't get into, I understand it for some players. I understand, schools have it. I mean, they have the right to use it. I don't defend any of that. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing. I do think though that the NIL stuff, Mitch, as we look at great leaders and stuff though, like, I mean, it's such a direct conversation because how you make your decisions as an individual, like what influences those decisions, right? Like that is a key part of who you are and how people see you and how people follow you. It really is. Like if I think that there's a lot of different examples on this, but I just think the way that free agency is now in professional sports, for example, we will probably, I know MJ ended up, at some point, Michael Jordan ended up with the Wizards, but it was different. Like Michael Jordan was going to win in Chicago, right? Michael Jordan wasn't going to leave Chicago to try to go win. He was going to win in Chicago. Like there is a mindset with that where it's like, no. I don't need to go anywhere for help. I'm staying right here and we're going to win it here. Right. And I think that as we've moved away from that, I think, I know people can say what they want about Michael, as, teammates sometimes call him a tyrant, and, the great 10-part documentary series, The Last Dance, is one of my favorites, but it's, in there, it's like he did what he had to do. Right. And like people did follow him. Like that's what people don't understand. Like you can say what you want, and I'm not measuring the moral stick of how he did it and all that, but he did get the best out of the people around him, and he did outwork everybody. So like if in my opinion, like when we look at players like that, I think there's so much I think you can learn so much from so many different incredible leaders and take pieces. And that, I think one of the things I'm trying to get across here, Mitch, is for anyone listening or watching, I do think that there's a point where you can really start to learn and develop how to become a great leader. I think that there are people who are born with more leadership skills and it's a little bit more natural,
Sure.
but I do think you can develop it. I do think you can be a person that isn't naturally going to stand in front of a group and be like, "Hey, this is how we're going to do it, guys. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Here's what we need to do today." I don't think everybody's built like that. I'd like your thoughts on that, man. I'd love to hear how we can give players listening tangible things that they can work on so that they can work to develop. You and I, Mitch, continue to work to be great leaders, right? Like
Yeah.
that's one of the things that it's a constant effort and you have to be intentional with it. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and we got to adapt too,
Yeah.
because you know I love coaching younger kids, like being a part of our camps, because when you're young, like working with those young bucks, you know how they can, you learn how they communicate. So when they get to this level, you know how to interact with them a little bit more, like learning their terminology and um, understanding what they're going through, what that generation's feeling. Otherwise, you kind of age yourself out, right? You
Yep.
can't connect. Connection is a huge piece of this.
Yes.
And so, you know, I'm not big on social media, Instagram or Snapchat or any of that other stuff. I'm gonna need help on that. My kids are going to have to help me figure out how to
Right.
communicate. But that's how a lot of kids communicate now,
Yep.
as opposed to just text message or phone calls or what have you. And so, either I have to meet them or I have to find a way to meet them in some
Right.
medium there. But you know, the connecting piece is always going to be so stinking important. If you want to develop as a leader, yes, I agree. Some people are naturally have that ability, the pizzazz, the zest that everyone gravitates towards. You know, that they're good looking, they're well spoken. But if you want to be in that position, why can't you challenge yourself? One thing that we do, and I love doing this, is for each of these times that I've ever been on camera, if I talk in the classroom, I'll have Brad, our analyst, videotape it. I've had him do it a number of times. I like rewatching it. I'll watch it with the sound off, and then I'll watch it again, or I'll listen to it, but I won't watch it. What is my voice projecting to the group? And then by watching it, what is my body language saying? Looking at everyone else out there, are they engaged?
Yep.
Am I using the room enough? I like watching myself and being a tough evaluator. I learned that from music too. Getting in a recording studio and listening to your voice with no instruments behind it, so you can sing with the instrumentals,
Interesting, man.
and then you cut those out and you listen to yourself and you're like, dang, I hope my buddy's a magician on here to make me sound good, because that was miserable. And so I constantly trying to pay attention to it, just to be better, challenge yourself.
Yeah.
And it could be with content. Like one of the main things on my computer is all the curriculum that we go over in the fall. We talk about the personal and society scoreboard. We're going to talk about being a difference maker. We're going to talk about status and service. We're going to talk about John Wooden, the mindset of Navy SEALs, their big pillars. We're going to go through a lot of different life skill things, and hopefully like they grab onto bits and pieces of each one. But being a student, going out and learning, you have to be able to blend the two and challenge yourself. One thing I did when I had my old company, I was trying to help someone in sales, and in order to be in sales, you got to communicate. You got to be able to handle the no. And a mentor of mine taught me this too. He said every time I would hire somebody in sales, when they're going through the interview process, I go like, how do you find such good workers? He goes, I told them all no. He goes, they'd go through the whole process. I'd sit them down the interview. No matter how good the interview went, I'd tell them no. Be like, I really appreciate you coming out, but I think I think there's other better qualified candidates for this position. So thank you for your time. And the people that would turn around and stand up and fight for what they believe in, no, I am the right person, and do it respectfully. Those who turn nasty, you don't want those people working for you,
Yeah.
right? Because they're
Right.
going to turn around and be like, "Oh yeah, you're not gonna come to Oregon State. Forget you." Like that's not how you do. That's not us.
Right.
The kid wants to go somewhere else, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Be respectful on it. They made their decision, and you should be happy that they made a decision that they feel is right.
Right.
Like that's what we do this stuff for, is to help young men
Right.
find their dreams. And if it's with us, great. If it's not with us, okay. Maybe
Yeah.
it will be down the road. Maybe our paths will cross again.
Yeah.
So, but I think him telling everyone no, giving them hardship and seeing how passionate they are on it. He goes, I always hired those people that were able to articulate why they are the best person after that, and not just take no for an answer. You have to be good in sales.
Yeah.
And you have to be able, like, if you want to be a leader, you have to communicate. So you got to throw yourself up in front of people. We, at the end of practice, we always do some kind of competition. All right, and I say, like, who wants to compete today? They have no idea what the competition is going to be. Is it going to be push-ups? Is it going to be tire flips? Is it going to be like wall sits? Is it going to be a relay race? Is it going to be a staring contest? I don't know. Rock, paper, scissors. Could be anything. So it could be physically, mentally, or just silly.
Yeah.
And I always want to know, like, I'll tell you what, Wade Meckler, the guy who made it to the big leagues quicker than anyone else in Oregon State history, right? 400 days. The guy who was not on the 35-man roster his first 2 years here, but continued to be resilient and find a way to make it happen. That guy, every day there was a challenge, Wade was up there and going to win it. It did not matter what it was, and he got mad, really mad if he didn't win it. And that's what everyone respected about it. The right guys respected about him.
Yeah. Yeah.
The wrong guys, oh, this guy's crazy. No, you're just scared to going down that road where he's going, because he is willing to push himself harder than anyone else. So you can have it. It may take a long time, but how else are you going to learn another language?
Right.
Except challenge yourself and stick with it. I don't know. And I think that there's also a great spot. Like, I've always asked, like, when I pray, I always ask, like, hey, give me the understanding to wherever you put me, that I embrace it and speak from that, that ridge that you want me to speak from. And every time I go through hardship, in my mind, I'm saying, all right, like, God wants me to, like, build strength so I can climb higher up the mountain and help more people. Sometimes people have to be down at the base of the mountain to help the village. Sometimes people have to be up at base camp, halfway up the mountain so they can ascend to a higher level. And sometimes there's got to be people that are ready to be at the peak their voice is going to carry further way up there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
Their actions, their voice are going to be seen so different at each level, and just embrace where you're at. If you're in A-ball and pro ball, be the best A-ball player you could possibly be.
Yep.
If you're in AA, stop worrying about AAA and the big leagues. Do your job where you're at.
Yep. 100%, man. And I think as we kind of move in this too, man, there's so many good pieces to this, and this is probably a 5-hour conversation like we talked about at the very beginning. And I see that we're having some technical issues here on the recording end, but the audio is still good. So we're going to carry on here. But I think one of the things I want to hit on really quick as we're kind of wrapping up here is, if we focus on the tangible side of becoming a great leader, right? So what a high school coach can do, what a high school player can do to become a great leader. I think you have to put yourselves, amongst your peers and try to figure out, what are those things that are happening, right? And I think, we want kids who can hold themselves accountable, put others first. They're selfless, right? They deflect credit. There's just so many pieces to this that I think are so critical. And I think that's a big piece of it. Be happy with others' success. I mean, how many times do we talk about that? It's like, it's unbelievable how often, I can watch a player, even on the draft side, like, you can see it when they're not happy for other people's success, and like, there's a jealousy in that competitiveness that you're touching on. should not lead to being so competitive you don't want your teammates to do well. The competitiveness should be about winning. Like, yes, in an individual competition, you want to win. Personally, you want to win, and you can be upset when you don't. But apart from that, what you're trying to do is you're trying to build a team that pushes to win, and that's what you're trying to do. So I want you to touch on that stuff a little bit, Mitch, as we kind of get close to wrapping up here.
Well, that's, at practice, if I'm a catcher, there's going to be other catchers there. If I'm at shortstop or center field, there's going to be other shortstops in center field. Everyone wants to play the position.
Right.
But again, like, what do we all stand for? And
Right.
in the household with your family, I want to be the one that takes care of everybody in my house that we look up to. That's the strong one who's going to, like, physically and emotionally protect everyone in the house. But sometimes there's just someone better for the job. The ultimate thing is to make sure your family is protected.
Yep.
And that you're in a good space, that you're winning. Mm-hmm. And so the competition can always go. I remember back in college, I was right there. I guess some of my best friends were like Dale and Eric and Casey, who we were all competing at the same position, and we went at it really hard. But at the same time, when we were away from the field or when the game was going, like, we were in each other's corner.
Yep.
I always felt that. If I was playing, I've always felt those guys wanted me to be successful for the team.
Yep.
Not waiting for someone to fall apart so that you can have an opportunity to go out and play. Like, that never should be the case. Mm-hmm. So if you're constantly thinking and praising other people, if you are like, how do you do it? How many of these kids that want to be great are writing it down and spending time in studies, learning about their craft? How many of them, like, whatever you're doing right now, challenge yourself to do more with your time. Yep. See what you're capable of doing.
Yep.
Omit yourself from the Friday or Saturday night, going out and staying up late, because then it turns into the next day, which turns into the next day. And now you're playing catch up. You went to high school for 4 years to propel yourself into college that you can do for 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. And then those 4 years that you spend in college are going to propel you for the rest of your life.
Yep.
You have to be willing to make those changes. So are you writing it down? I have in, like, right here in front of me, I got 2 journals. I got one that is your father's story. I'm writing a journal for my kids at some point that they can have. I have another one, of self-reflection. I always have notes all over. I got whiteboards everywhere. Self-reflection, vision. Where do you want to go? Are you writing the stuff down? If a kid is afraid to talk about his big, lofty goals, if a kid is afraid to, I say kid, anyone, yep, is afraid to write it down and share it with others, then how are you ever going to act on this thing? If it's just so internal, you don't really believe it. You're just thinking it. If you're afraid to share it, it's because you don't want everyone to talk down on you if you fail,
right,
in the short term. So the house we live in right now, it was 2007, and I told the owner of the house I was going to buy that house someday. And so when I got the job, I came back and I knocked on his door and said, I want to buy your house. Awesome. I felt it. In 2006, I was drafted by the Cardinals, and I remember I was out in the Cape, and I called up Barney, and I said, he goes, well, what are you going to do? You going to sign? I go, I don't know, man. Like, that's more money than I've ever seen. He goes, yeah. But then I started thinking, I was like, anyone can win one national championship. I tell you what, I'll come back. I came to college because I wanted to get my degree and be the first person in my family with a degree. So I'll come back if, I'm going to go get my degree, and you promise we're going to win another national championship, and someday we coach together at Oregon State. And so all those things happened, right? But we thought it, we talked about it, and then we talked about it often at practice, like winning, pushing the guys, like building relationships. well, man, like I could do this, but I took out a loan my last year here, so I had enough money to take my teammates out to, grab a bite to eat, or because I knew that was where, if we're going to win, we need everybody on board.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to spend a lot of time sitting down and getting to know guys so I can get the best out of them, and that's
Yeah.
usually over a meal. And
Right.
um, invest in other people. Like I, uh, if you think about the guys that are really good, like Bazana didn't necessarily worry about himself at the position or whatever. He was always in the present moment, but he was also seeing the field,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? When
Right.
I first started catching, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like in that little box behind home plate, trying not to mess it up, which I messed it up quite a bit. And I knew I got good, or better, we'll say, when I started to see the whole field, as opposed to just worrying about myself and what I was going through.
Yep.
Right. So this idea of, how many times when you talk to someone do they say I this, I that, I. You know, I is a lonely place. A close friend of mine, Irvin, always says we. He goes, "Well, we're going to go to the store today." I go, "Who's we?" "Oh, me and Jesus." You know, I'm never alone, Mitchell. And I just
So
I
good.
think of those things like it's amazing when you go out and compete on the field, deflecting. That's the cool thing about being a coach is you have no stats. You have no one cares about. You know, you don't have to hit anymore. You don't have to throw.
Mm.
You're just so focused on other people.
Yeah.
And life has been so rewarding just being about others, the
Yep.
program,
Yep.
the family. Each and every one of these kids are going through something, and you're just trying to help them the best you can. You're going to mess it up, but, you know, just do your best and pour into other people. And it's constant balance because you're trying to make sure that you're giving to your family and helping them feel loved and grow as well. But going to bed exhausted is so rewarding.
Yeah. The pour out. Yep. I this is so good, man. And I think you're hitting on so many things. And I think as we look at at the player themselves and how they can develop this, I mean, there's many, many key pieces to it, but I think it's also being willing to put yourself in uncomfortable positions. Sometimes you have to say things that's the right thing to say. I even though it's really tough and may come off wrong to some other people, but it's what your team may need to hear. It may be standing up for another teammate at some point that needs it. I mean, there's just so many pieces that I think is just as we kind of like finish this out, like that players can develop and use their skill set in a way that really impacts people and it really impacts the way people follow them. But I'm going to end on this last question here. You have a bunch of stuff going on and some stuff later, so I want to get you off here. But last question. So, what is your final advice to a high school player that's going through the recruiting process right now in high school, wants to play in college? In general, though, even if they don't do that, what's your advice to becoming a better leader now for them?
Hmm. If it's easy, it's the wrong way. If it's difficult, embrace it and go get it. Right?
Yeah.
I always thought, well, it makes me feel good if I do this, if I
Yeah.
go out and
Yep.
hang out
Yep.
with other guys. I told my wife, I don't know if you noticed this about me since we started dating in high school, but I didn't really have many friends. I didn't really do a whole lot outside of work a job and, try to save some money and take care of my schoolwork. It wasn't,
Yeah.
I tell my son this too. He's like, I don't want to do my hair. The cool kid, like, people make fun of you for doing your hair. Like you're too cool or something. I'm like, it's now no longer cool to look like a respectable human being to show that you care about yourself. What? I go, well, that's not how we do it in the Canham household. Either do your hair or walk your own butt to school, right? And so
That's great, man.
but it requires effort.
Yeah.
Is I think a lot of the thing right now is kind of fighting the effort to make my bed every day, you know, right
Yep.
when I wake up, to when the alarm goes off, get up, to brush your teeth. You know, I don't really want to floss. That just takes effort. Ooh, pull the flosser out, floss your teeth too. If it's, I just always have thought that if it's easy, it's the wrong way.
Yeah.
It's easy to walk by trash on the ground. It's easy to go into our kitchen over at the locker room, see that the trash is full and be like, dude, someone else can take care of this. I'm the head coach. I don't need, no, grab that like garbage bin, walk it out in the alley, dump it and bring it back in.
Yep.
And also teach other guys when that thing gets full, like respect your home, because
Yep.
otherwise someone else is going to have to do it.
Yep.
So there's no job too big or too small.
Yeah.
If you do it to chase society's scoreboard, it's probably not right if that's the main emphasis
Yep.
behind what you're doing. If you're trying to please other people, guess what? You're not always going to please other people. It doesn't matter how many games we win or guys that get drafted or any of that stuff. There are always going to be letters on my desk telling me about how poor of a job I'm doing. But guess what? Like, I know that I am doing my absolute best. I know my coaches. I'm appreciative of them because they push me each and every day. They challenge me.
Mhm.
The players who come in here are accepting. I already know. I saw it when they're all showing up right now for summer school. Some guys are going to be really quiet. They're not going to want to make eye contact. They're nervous. This is
Yeah.
a whole new realm. There's older guys. You got guys that are 23, 24 years old that are finishing up school now that they have to compete against. It's a 5-6 year gap.
Right.
You know, these are grown men going against a young man who's still trying to, you know, grow a decent mustache.
Right.
So it's embrace it, love it, accept it. Say, you know what? This looks like it's gonna be real tough, and jump in it. And before you know it, think about, you know, snipers at the most elite level. One sniper's sitting there on the range, the other guy's down by the target. Why? He's tracking where the hits were, but also he's able to know, you know, he's hearing, like feeling the bullets go by him to hit that target. So when they're actually out in the battlefield, right, it's nothing new, because you're going to get shot at. You have to put yourself in the mess. And if you are living comfort and cozy, if you are chasing, you know, money, if you get $1 million, what do you want now? You want 2. If you got 2, you want 10. If you got 10, you want 20. Like, what do you need?
Yeah. Yep.
What, like, I don't know. Everything here in Corvallis is about, you know, putting smiles around all those around you and challenging them, making this place great. But if it's easy, it's the wrong way. And also, I'd say the other big thing is document it, write it down. You know, we do MDPs, man developing plans, and every month we sit down and we chart what is our vision for the next 30 days and exactly what does that process look like to make our weaknesses our strengths and to keep our strengths our strengths.
Love that, man.
You got it right.
This is so good, Mitch. And this is we could talk for hours on this stuff, but I appreciate you, man, as a friend. I appreciate your story so much. I've learned a lot from you, and you know, just always appreciate our conversation. But I appreciate your time, man. I know you got a lot going on, and you're willing to take the time to come on the podcast. So appreciate you, buddy, and I will talk with you soon.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you having me on here. I know we've been trying to line this up for a little bit, but any chance we get to connect, I'm in, especially if it's something that can get out and help other people. I'm double in.
Yeah, me too, buddy. I appreciate you, man, and I'll talk with you soon.
Hey, Justin.